as we look at outreach here in 2021, I think one of the questions that we ought to ask ourselves is, what does outreach look like? Is it preaching? Is it texting? Is it an apologetic approach to presenting the gospel? I think that one of the most important aspects of outreach is one that perhaps we all too quickly overlook, and that is simply the process of serving. Jesus identified himself as a servant. Mark chapter 10, at the end of the chapter, we're given a story of Jesus and his disciples, and two of his disciples decided that they wanted positions of authority in Jesus' kingdom. So they came to him and they asked for it. Jesus told them, I can't give that to you. That's not mine to give. But he kept going then. He talked about the attitude behind that. We're reading here in Mark chapter 10, verses 42 to 45. Jesus called his disciples together and said, you know that the rulers of this world lord it over their people. Officials flaunt their authority over those under them. And of course, when he was talking about that, the world authority that existed was Rome. Rome was an excellent hierarchical arrangement of authority, going from Caesar to the Senate, each one very carefully laid out who and what they were responsible for, but their word was law. Jesus says, among you, it'll be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. Whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man, even I myself, came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Jesus characterizes his own ministry as the ministry of a servant. Now that's interesting. He could have called himself a prophet. So I checked through. I went to Bible Gateway. I plugged in the word prophet. Jesus never refers to himself as a prophet. Others do, but Jesus doesn't. The only possible exception to that is Mark 6:4, and its parallels in all four Gospels, where Jesus says, a prophet is honored everywhere except in his own hometown and among his relatives and his own family. But that's not Jesus calling himself a prophet. Jesus doesn't really call himself a leader. Now, he does refer to himself as Lord. In the book of John, chapter 13, he says, you call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, because I am. Jesus did identify himself as the Lord, but he didn't come to exert his authority, to coerce people to obey him. Instead, he came to serve. Now, because of that, over the next, today and the next 3 days, we're going to look at service in Jesus' words and in his followers' words. There are 3 words in Greek for service. I'm going to dismiss 2 of them very quickly. Those are the Greek words latruo and liturgeo. Those 2 words are used primarily to refer to cultic service. They describe Zechariah, John the Baptist's father, serving in the temple. They describe priests serving at the altar. They're also used to describe service, but that meaning is a very minor meaning for them. Rather, we're going to look at two other words. One is diakoneo, means to serve, and the other is doulo, which means to be a slave. Jesus and his followers used both of those words to describe their own actions. Come on back tomorrow, the next day. We'll talk about what that means, what that looks like.